right, so we're getting started. 2024 Python 3 tutorials. I'm gonna be making a short series, and I decided to start with Python. For those of you who watched my live stream the other day, which was on the 30th of December 2023, last year, it was just a couple of days back. So yeah, I'm gonna be making different playlists, and I decided to start with Python. So we are going to start with Python basics and then branch off to more advanced concepts and other fields of technology. But one thing I'm not going to be doing in my series, for this particular series, which is the Python crash course, pretty much for beginners to just get you started with Python and programming as in general, what I'm not going to be doing is show you how to install certain software. So I'm going to be linking some YouTube channels that I think you might be interested in learning how to install the software that I'm going to be using. I'll just dive right into the technicalities of how the programming language works and getting you started from that point. So from the point of installing the softwares that I'm using, such as Python, as well as Visual Studio Code, you will need to watch a very short video in some links that I'm going to put in the description. So that being said, let's just dive right into it. So today we are going to be looking at Python basics. So today is day one, and we are going to be looking at the following things. One is your first program, Python syntax, which is pretty much the base of where you're going to start from. For those of you wondering, this is a series that is going to adhere or cater to those people who are looking to start with Python. For those advanced gurus, I'll be making a separate series for you guys where you already know the basics of Python and the 1, 2, 3s. That will be a separate playlist for you guys. But for this particular series, it's for those looking to start coding in Python and looking for a career change in the programming industry. So we're going to look at variables and data types. We're going to look at casting data types. We're going to look at strings, and we're going to look at Boolean. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to be looking at in the basics part of the series. I'm hoping to take this in 2 separate videos so that it is not too long and too boring for you guys to get started with. So I'll just dive right into the concepts that we're going to be learning today. So today probably we might do up to maybe variables and data types, because we have quite a number of things to cover in that area. So that's where I'm going to be ending today, and then casting data types, strings, and Boolean we are going to be covering in the next day. I was planning on starting on the 1st of January, but I'm starting today, which is the 2nd, so that you guys have your days and enjoy and whatever. And those of you who are serious about learning programming this year, we can start the journey together, and then we can see where it leads all of us. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is just diving into my Visual Studio Code. I have Python installed and I have Visual Studio Code installed as well. So you need to have these softwares on your machine, whether you're on a Mac or a PC. It doesn't matter. I'm going to link those videos in the description, and you'll be able to set up your environment just as I have. So let's just dive right into Visual Studio. So here I have my Visual Studio Code open, and what we're going to do is I'm going to open a folder that I've created on my PC. So I'm on PC, I'm not on Mac. So I'm just going to go to my documents, and I have a folder named work and tech with Lottie. So this is where I'm going to be putting on my code, TWL code. It's very important that you have a specific directory for all your work so that you don't lose it. Try to separate the environments as well, but that we'll look at in much later future on environments and so on. So I'm gonna be opening this folder, and this is where I'm gonna creating all my files. This is where I will be creating everything. And I think my subscription for Copilot expired, so I'm just gonna go ahead and close that. So TWL Python code, this is basically what my folder is named, and I'll be creating my files in here. So to get started with Python, is the first thing you have to do is you need to save your Python program or script, we call them scripts, with a .py extension. Now further moving on, this might not be the only extension to save Python scripts. When you start using notebooks, it's a bit different, but it's basically the same concept. Another thing I would advise you to do is try not to leave spaces in between the names of your programs. So for example, if you want to, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but sometimes it has issues with memory. As you progress further in Python, you're gonna find issues like that. So for example, I want to name this my first program. So if I want to name this my first program, and then I do the .py extension, sometimes it's very hard to point to this particular file by the operating system. I'm not saying every time, I'm saying sometimes. So it would be wise if you would just try and use this type of naming convention where you just capitalize the first letter of every word that follows after the first word. This way it'll be easier for the computer to actually access your file. So I'm just gonna give you that tip for today before you name your programs. So I'm just gonna name this my first code, and I'll leave it like that. So my first code, I'm gonna click enter, and there I have it. So once everything is set up, and once everything is set up, and once everything is running on your computer, once you've installed everything with the links that I left in the description box, then you can try out this little line just to make sure that everything is working. So I'll just say welcome to Tech with me. Okay, so I'll just put that over there, and there's this little play button. You can just go ahead and click that, and your program should run as follows. So of course you're gonna see some really long address here, which is showing exactly where this particular code is running from. So don't be alarmed by that. That's basically normal. So as you can see, my text just printed here. So it means your program and your Python is running perfectly fine after you've installed everything. Now, understanding a little bit about what I just did, okay? First of all, we need to understand what Python is. Python, different from other programming languages, is interpreted. It is not compiled, it's interpreted. Meaning, most of the stuff has been done for you, okay? In technical terms, we would say that when we say interpreted and compiled code, what we mean is an interpreted language does not really run directly on the machine. It's more like the code has already been compiled a little bit and then can easily be run on any machine with that programming language. If I write a script of Python here and I write the same script of Python on a Mac, or I just copy it and put it on a Mac or put it on a Linux machine, it will work the same. This meaning it is interpreted. However, compiled languages, they need to be converted by the computer itself. So meaning if I just copy a code from my Windows machine and just try to run it directly on Linux, let's say for a programming language such as C or C++, it would cause me some sort of difficulty because I need to recompile that particular language or that particular script for the machine to be able to run it. I just can't run it directly. Hope that makes sense. So compilers and interpreters, well, they take whatever it is that we can read, and then they convert it to something that a computer can understand, and then the machine itself translates that program. And in interpreted language, well, the code is not directly translated by the machine. So it's like the code is already translated if that machine is able to run that particular programming language in that particular sense. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically that's just it. Okay, now understanding that in Python, if I write print, which is a function, now this we're going to look at deeper in the next videos or so. But what you should understand about functions in Python is, first, they have a name. So I'm gonna be putting some comments in here. So if I do hashtag and then I type in some text over here, this is called a comment. It doesn't necessarily cause any effect or change to your logic or syntax or code. It's just something to give a message on what the line either below or above is about, but usually the line below. So in this particular point, I am teaching you about the print function. This is one of my favorite functions, and you understand why as we progress further in this particular course. So print function, the print function is really amazing. So basically what it does in a nutshell is simply take whatever text you give it or whatever data you give it, and then it prints it out to the console. The console is my terminal down over here. That is my console. So now, understanding what happens and what this function actually does, the syntax of it is pretty simple. You write the word print, and then you open and close parentheses. Inside the parentheses, you open and close quotations. So, or pretty much you just put quotation marks. So what you're going to do now in here is type in whatever text you want to type. So like before, I'm just going to type the same thing: welcome to Tech with me. Okay, Tech with Lottie. That was my error. So welcome to Tech with Lottie. After that, it's home and dry. You just click on the play, and you can see it writes welcome to Tech with Lottie. Now, this might become a little bit cumbersome when you're trying to run a code over and over again because you are trying to make some changes, and this part keeps on piling up, which is a bit annoying. So what you want to do is you want to clear out this stuff after a while. So if I'm on Windows, I can just use CLS. If you're on Mac or you are on Linux, you can just simply type clear. It should work perfectly fine. Okay, now understanding about the print function and what it does, there are quite a number of things you need to know. You're going to understand in the next few seconds. So understanding that that's the basic syntax of how the print function works and how it is arranged and how we should write it, the structure basically, that's the structure of every other function that is going to exist. So some functions take arguments, some functions don't. I need you to understand that. So some functions take arguments, some functions don't. I will learn more about that in the coming videos. Okay, now we are going to look at variables and data types, which is what we'll be pretty much closing our session with today. Variables and data types. First of all, what is a variable? So think of a variable as a container. A variable is more like a container, and this container can pretty much carry some type of data or some type of materials. So I'm going to explain technically, and then I'm going to explain general wise for you to understand what I mean by variable. So first, on the technical part, a variable is simply a memory location that you allocate some data to. That's in a nutshell. And then in a general sense, take for instance, you have a plastic bottle, water bottle, juice bottle, whatever it is. Now, a water bottle will be able to hold water, and a juice bottle will be able to hold juice or to contain that particular type of material. Same with variables. The type of container determines the type of data it can hold. So if you have, let's say, a plastic bag or a paper bag, is it going to be possible for you to carry kilos and kilos of stones, rocks, and metal materials, building tools, all that stuff in a paper bag? No, the paper bag will break or something like that. What would you be able to carry in a paper bag? Maybe some light groceries, maybe some papers, some tissues, stuff like that. So with variables, it is the same. Variables have what we call a data type. So the data type is what you would consider the type of bag you're having, whether it's a plastic bag or a paper bag or a cloth bag, whatever it is. So that's how you can understand variables. They're simply containers that, being given the type of data type, can carry a specific type of data or information. So let's look at some examples. For example, I want to put a name in a variable. So I'll design a variable, or I'll declare a variable, which I will now give a value, which is me. So after giving it that value, I need to understand something. Where the name is, this is where we say declaration. When you just say name, you're declaring. When you say is equal to Lottie, you are defining. So this is function declaration and definition. Oh, sorry, not function, variable. Variable, declaration, and definition. Fine. So what you're doing here is you're saying, I want a memory location and I'm naming it name. And in this memory location, I want you to put the word Lottie or the name Lottie. It can be any word that you want. It can be technology as well. It's not a big deal. So you can put whatever it is that you want to put over there, your name or stuff like that. Now this type of variable is called a string. So now in Python, we are lucky enough to have this done for us automatically. But it does get a little bit concerning as we move forward, because once we get data from the user, it's something else. Okay, so what we are going to now look at is another type of variable. Let's say age, and I'm gonna say 13, or let's just put it at, yeah, I'm gonna put it at 13. I don't want to put my actual age over there. So this is a number, or pretty much a numeric value. So this is an integer. So this is an integer, and if we look at maybe like height, I'm gonna say is equal to, let's just put it at 1.80. This is a data type called float. So a point value is a float data type and not an integer, because it has a decimal point. Okay, now after understanding that part of this data types, data declaration and definition, and data types, what they are. So the data types are the types of bags. Plastic bag, like I explained before. just to get you understanding what that is all about. Fine. So now let's say I want to print this out. So this is where it gets tricky. So I want to print this out. Printing variables. So I want to print this out. If I do print, you might be thinking I have to put the quotation marks over here and say name. But what actually happens with this is pretty funny. It's gonna print the word name and not print technology. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So if I run that, see, it prints name and not technology, but I want to print technology. So what do? What I'm going to do is I am going to remove the quotation marks. The reason for this is when you're printing variables, the value has already been given and assigned to a memory location. So what you're printing now is the data at the memory location, because you have defined that memory location to have the word name. So if you were doing binary, like if you were to do binary and you would not, you're not using variables, something more complex, you would have to put the ones and zeros here in the exact order that the computer saved your variable technology. Now we are not doing that. This is why programming languages exist, to make things much more easier for us to access these things. So if I want to access technology, I just have to write name. I don't have to write all those ones and zeros because I'm not really sure which memory location name is actually accessing. All I know is the programming language Python allows me to name that memory location name. Sounds redundant, but I hope you understand. And then because of that, I'm able to get the string. I'm able to get the string over here. So if I print this out, you can see now it's printing technology and not the word name. So the same goes for all of this. Okay, so if I go ahead and print this out, I can print out my age, I can print out my height. So which is pretty cool. So if I now go ahead and run that, you can see it's printing out all the things. Welcome to Tech with Lottie on top, and printing out all my variables over here. Now these are not the only data types that exist. We are going to look further into other data types in the coming videos, but for today this is what I had for you guys. Again, I know for those gurus this is very basic for you. You don't even waste time watching it. This is why this is for total beginners, getting them started the right way, making them understand each and everything every step of the way, so that they're able to code and develop their own logics later on. So that's it for this video. See you guys in tomorrow's lesson. I'll see you guys. Stay safe and happy new year to all of you.